Okay, here's the worksheet for the notes today. I provided a copy for you there in Schoology, so if you can print this worksheet out, you don't have to draw all the problems out. But if you're unable to print this out, well, just pause it, draw the triangles out, and then continue, right? Okay, so we're working on 45 special right triangles, right? This is the second worksheet. This is part 2. This is the notes, okay? So you can pause it here. Make sure you copy the title, copy the directions, right? Remember, these special right triangles. They're going to only give you one side, and with that information, it depends. Sometimes it can be a leg, sometimes it'll be the hypotenuse side. But with only one side, that should be enough information for you to find the other two sides. Okay, and let's keep in mind here, let me focus in a little bit more so it won't be so blurry maybe. Let's see. All right, let me focus. Okay, and I'm just gonna write it up in this top corner here. Again, they're going to kind of change the orientation, rotate the triangle, but I think you'll be able to follow along and understand that for a 45, 90, I'm gonna draw it over here. You might want to draw it too. Sometimes it's facing this way, sometimes it's facing that way. I mean, it doesn't matter, but just keep this always in mind. I mean, remember, this is like half of a square, right? Half of a square, which means that whatever the legs are congruent. Remember those, whatever this one is, let's call it X. Whatever this one is, this one's also X. And what do we know? Well, this one should have the X. It should be whatever the value of whatever the length of the leg is, times the value of root 2. And you're not going to see it like this anymore, so this is where it gets a little tricky. But just remember how the side relationships have to go. The legs, these are the legs, right? The legs are the ones that form the 90-degree angle. And then that diagonal side is the hypotenuse, right? The hypotenuse. That diagonal side. Okay, so I'm gonna go a little quick. If you need to pause it, pause it. That's a good thing about the video. You can always pause it. You can always rewind it. You can watch it as many times as needed. But this is what has to be true about a 45, 90. And I know I've been telling you, make sure you write the angles, right? 45, 90. If you remember the last notes, we kind of had an if and then situation. All right, let's go with this first one. Okay, and again, they're going to use different variables here. I want you to just ignore them for now, for the sake of the problem. Sometimes I use X and Y, sometimes I use A and B, sometimes I use, whatever. It doesn't matter what the letter is. Okay, so for the point of doing these problems, just kind of ignore them for now, and it won't confuse you. Okay, let's look at number 1. Looking at number 1, forget about this, forget about that. I'm only going to focus on what I know. If this is true, if they're giving me this, right, we're looking at number 1 again. If you have to pause it. Here's the 90-degree angle, right? What I want you to do first is what? Copy it again. Writing where the angles are. Right in both. 40. You know it's a 45, 90. And if that's true, these are the legs, which should be X, which should be X, which should be X root 2. Right? And which one do they give you? Which one do they give you? Remember, they're going to give you one piece of information. They give you this one. I know that this one is what? The value of X is 3 root 2. Guess what? Everywhere there's an X, you put a 3 root 2. Well, if this leg is 3 root 2, Again, remember, we're used to seeing the root 2 on the hypotenuse. But see, that's not happening now. Don't think that if this is if this was 3 root 2, yeah, this would be 3 and 3. That's one of the easy ones. The easy ones would be 3, 3, 3 root 2. But now, it's not 3 root 2 here on the hypotenuse. So don't always assume that that's going to be the case. So label your sides like this. Now the leg is 3 root 2. If this leg is 3 root 2, guess what? This other leg is also what? 3 root 2, right? The legs are congruent. The legs are congruent. And then, that's the value of x. How will you figure this one out? Remember what this is saying. This is saying that you take the value of x and you multiply it to root 2. So the value of x is what? 3 root 2. 3 root 2 times another root 2. Right? What's going to happen when you multiply this root 2 times this root 2? That's going to be 3 times 2. So that means that you get 6. So this triangle should be what? Like this. It should be 3 root 2, right? The legs are 3 root 2, 3 root 2, and the hypotenuse is what? 6. So these are the two missing sides. Now you can come back and say, okay, this one, what? Y is 3 root 2. X, which is a hypotenuse, is 6. All right, let's try the next one, number 2. Very similar again. Very similar again. Let me draw it over again. Remember, forget about these letters. Don't let those X and Y letters, don't let these mess you up with the way you know that you're supposed to label the sides. Okay, so how am I supposed to label the sides? Forget about everything right here. What do you know? Well, this is a 45, right? Label the angles. Label the angles. This is half of a square, right? It's half of a square. The legs are what? Congruent. Whatever this one is, this one is. That's why they're the same letter X. And this one should be the value of a leg times root 2. And what's given here? Let's go back over here. What do we know? Oh, we know another leg again is what? 6 root 2? Is that what it says here? Yeah. That means this one here is what? 6 root 2. Well, if that leg is 6 root 2, the other leg has to be what? 6 root 2. Good. X is 6 root 2. So that means that here, for this x, it should be what? Let me just draw it over here. I don't want to run into this one. I already got 6 root 2. I already got 6 root 2. This should be the value of x times root 2. Well, the value of x is what? 6 root 2. But then times this root 2, right? Because we know the hypotenuse has to be whatever the value of x is times root 2. What's going to happen there when you multiply 6 root 2 times another root 2? That's another way of saying what? 6 times 2. So what is 6 times 2? Well, it's 12. That means that this side is 12. Here's my two missing sides. Remember, this is the one that they gave you. They already gave you one. They gave you this one. You're supposed to find the other two. Okay. All right, let's continue. Let's watch this one here. And I'll do this one on a separate piece of paper because I'm running out of space here. That's fine. Remember, you can pause it here. You can pause it, copy it down, and then push play. Okay, for this one, again, I don't just worry about the one they give you. Don't worry about these other letters, okay? What you should be doing is what? Drawing the what? 45. 45. We know it's a 45, 45, 90. And label the three sides. The legs are what? Congruent. The legs are x, x, and this hypotenuse side should be x root 2. Now, what did they give you? Let's look back. They're going to give you one of these. They give you this one here. They give you this one here. They give you a leg. The leg is 7 root 3. Well, if one of the legs is 7 root 3, that's your value of x, right? X is 7 root 3. What's this one? The legs are the same, right? It means this one's 7 root 3 also. Right? These legs have to be congruent. Whatever this one is. Now the question is, how do you get this hypotenuse? Well, remember, x is 7 root 3. So here would be what? A 7 root 3 times what? Root 2? Whatever 7 root 3 times root 2 is going to be the length of this hypotenuse. We know that 7 root 3 times root 2 is what? 7 root 6. That is the way that these sides go. The legs should be congruent, and then the hypotenuse is whatever the leg is times root 2. That's what we're doing. We're following the side relationships that we're familiar with. Okay? Number 4. Again, you can rewind it if you need to. You can pause it if you need to. Okay, number 4 looks, again, it's starting to get a little bit intimidating here. Let's see here. Number 4, pause it if you need to, copy it. Okay. What do? I'm going to erase what I don't need and add what I need, and let's see, here we go. They should look the same length, right? I'll make it a little bit bigger. So this is 90. If this is 45, well, that forces this one to be 45. This is, again, a special right triangle, right? It's half of a square. And what do I know? Well, this one should be x, and this one should be x, and this one should be x root 2. Okay, what is this one here? Which one is given? This one. One of the legs. And it's what? 11 root 2 over 2. Ooh, that's a little tricky, huh? Well, wherever I see a x, I know that's not this x. See, that's why I want you to erase it. Don't look at that. Don't let that confuse you. The legs are x and x. So if this one's 11 root 2, guess what? This one's also what? 11 root 2. Wherever you see a x, 11 root 2 over 2. These have to be congruent. They're the same. The question is, how do you get this one? Now watch here. This one you're supposed to put what? Let me do it over here. That's 11 root 2 over 2. That's 11 root 2 over 2. This one should be the value of x, which I know, times root 2. Okay, then here you're going to put what? 11 root 2 over 2 times another root 2. Check out what's going to happen. Times this root 2, right? What's going to happen? Well, guess what? These two, when you multiply them, doesn't it give you 11 times 2? But don't even multiply it. Don't even multiply it. You don't need to. Check this out. You don't need to. I know that this is really saying 11 times 2, but then 11 times 2 divided by 2? Well, guess what? These two cancel. I don't need to multiply 11 times 2, get 22, and then divide it by 2 to come back to 11. Just leave it there. Just leave it as 11 times 2. Don't get the answer. And then this 2 and this 2 will cancel. Guess what's left? Your side length. Your side length is 11. This diagonal will be 11. All right. All right. 2 more, and these are the most important ones. So we're building up to it. Okay. Before I go to number 5, let me just remind you, this is what you're used to. I mean, when it works out perfectly great, you'd see something like, you'd see something like 5 root 2. Remember that? This is like the cleanest way and the simplest way that it should work, right? You should see the sides are the same, and then this one times root 2. I mean, that's like the simple ones. Well, that's not happening anymore. Okay, so these are going to be a little bit different, these last two, number 5 and 6. So pay attention. This is not the same as this, because now you're going to see something like, now you're going to see a number here, like 8. It's supposed to have a 8 root 2, but it doesn't have it. And that's why I'm telling you it's different. Okay? It's supposed to have, I mean, this is supposed to be the one with the root 2, the hypotenuse, right? But it's not going to have it. So this is where you got to pay attention. Okay, let me do the last two. Very important ones. Number 5. Okay. Here we go. So again, I want to ignore whatever letters, whatever variables they use. I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for me, right? And this is 45, 45, 90, right? These specials, like a half of a square. You got to remember, it's half of a square. It's a square that got cut right down the middle. But I know that this leg is congruent, and I know this. And remember, label the sides. This should be x. This should be x. This should be x root 2. Okay. Here, it says that this side, this x root 2 is equal to what? It says that x root 2 should give me a what? A 12. So check this out. See, it's supposed to have a root 2, but it doesn't. Okay. So this is what you do. These are different. You got to just follow here. So this x root 2 has to give me a 12. So you put x root 2 equals 12. You just put an equation like this. I'm trying to find what value of x multiplied to a root 2 gives me 12, right? And this is a 45, 45. Now, I'm going to make this the simplest as I can. The square root of 2 is not 2, okay? I'm trying to find the value of x, that when I multiply to a 2, I'm trying to find the value of x that when I multiply a root 2 to it gives me a whole number 12. You understand that? I need to find this. When I find this, that's the answer for x. That's going to be the legs, right? Okay. So what can I multiply to a root 2 to give me 12? Well, let me just make this kind of easy for you. This is not the number 2. This is the square root of 2. The square root of 2 is like, you can check on your calculator, it's like 1.4 or something. This is not a 2, but listen, you can make it a 2, right? In order for this to become a whole number 2, I have to multiply another square root of 2. Do you guys agree with that? You guys agree with that? The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 gives me the whole number 2. Now you ask yourself, 2 times what number gives me 12? 6. Isn't this another way of saying 6 times 2? Yeah. 6 is here, and where's my whole number 2? Well, again, the one of them doesn't make your whole number 2. Part of your answer has to have the other one. So your answer has to have another root 2, radical 2. When these multiply, it gives you the 2, and then 2 times what? 2 times 6. So that's your value of x. That's your x, 6 root 2. 6 root 2 times another root 2 will be 6 times 2, which will make this a 12. That's your answer for your x. And your x is what? Are the values for your legs. Right? Your x is what I need. I already know this one. I'm not trying to find this one. This one's 12. But that means that the x is going to be what? Your legs are going to be 6 root 2, 6 root 2. Let me do one more like this. One more like this. Number 6. And I'm gonna have to do this on a separate piece of paper. You guys copy it. Forget about those variables. Here goes this last one. Okay, so I'm gonna copy it over. They kind of rotated the triangle. Looks like this. Oops, that's kind of too big, huh? Oh well. And we know if this one's 90, then this one's 45, then the other one's 45. And remember, label your legs as x and x. And then I know my hypotenuse is x root 2. That's the way it's supposed to go. Now let's look at the problem. Which one did they give us? Oh, they gave us this one here. But it doesn't have a root 2. It just has an 8. It doesn't match with this, what it's supposed to have. This tells me that it's 8. So what you have to do is you have to say, okay, this means that I'm trying to find the value of x that when I multiply root 2 to it gives me 8. See, that's what's going on here. They already told you this one measures 8. They're telling you, I mean, you don't have to find that one. But this is the side that's supposed to have x root 2, some value times root 2 has to give me the answer 8. So this is what I'm trying to show you here. What is this value of x? Because when I find it here, I mean, that's going to be the answer for my legs. What's the value of x? Then when I multiply a root 2 to it, gives me an 8. And this is where you just got to use a little bit of logic, a little bit of reasoning, and just a little bit of common sense. This is not a 2 yet. This is not a whole number 2. But I know if I put in my answer for x, if I include another one, if I include another radical 2, these two together give me the whole number 2. Right? When you multiply a square root of 2 times the square root of 2, that gives me a 2. And then you're like, okay, I got a 2. What do I have to multiply a 2 to get to an 8? Well, 4. See, 4 square root of 2 times the other square root of 2, that's the same thing as saying 4 times 2. It's the fancy, tricky way, huh? But anyways, the point is that you found your value of x. Your value of x is what? 4 root 2. And x is your legs. So guess what your legs are? 4 root 2, 4 root 2. That's how this one works. All right, I'll explain a little bit of this first part in class, but here's the way that you're going to have your assignment. All right, so rewind it, see it as many times as you need, and hopefully it makes sense. All right, good luck with the assignment.